and welcome to the 172nd edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. On our Monday drive time show on WOON 1240 AM and www.onworldwide.com. I'm Ben, and opening the show today was my co-host and partner in the paranormal, my dad.
Thank you, Ben. We have no guest today, and we'll be talking mostly about ghosts, so please feel free to call in. Locally, it's 401-766-1240, and nationally, 800-449-1240. Don't feel that you have to give your name if you want to report or tell a story of your own ghostly experiences. Many people obviously are a little bit antsy about doing that for fear of ridicule. However, what did the Ghostbusters say, Ben? We are ready to believe you. But very seriously, it's please feel free to call in and do that. We do hope to hear later on from our good friend Steve Fermani in Exeter, New Hampshire, in the Hampshire area. And he recently headed up the, it was a non-ghosting, I guess, the UFO festival in Exeter, which we were very warmly welcomed and had a wonderful time.
Yes.
He's going to talk a little bit about that. But mostly today we're going to talk about ghosts. So again, feel free to call in.
All right, but we have to do our weekly paranormal contest because it's that time of the week. Because it's Monday. Oh, it's crazy Monday. All right, last week's question was, where in New England?
Well, where in England?
Why did I say New England? Where?
We live here.
Well, yeah, so where in England is the so-called talking tree? And the winner was Corey Sinclair of Carlsbad, California.
The answer was Hassop Hall in Bakewell, Derbyshire, England. The tree supposedly whispers the name of the true owner of the property. Now, the place is now a hotel, so I sure hope they have clear title, or else none of the guests get any sleep.
Yeah, I don't really get what the point of that talking tree is.
No,
so,
that's the tree.
Oh, you're funny. We're keeping this week's question strictly local. So, what road in Cumberland, Rhode Island is haunted by the so-called faceless ghost? If you can handle that, call us locally at 401-766-1240 or from anywhere in the U.S. at 800-449-1240. If I don't announce a winner during the show and you still think you have a shot, drop a line to me at ben@behindtheparanormal.com. And the winner gets a copy of Footsteps in the Attic, one of my dad's most popular books.
Right. Actually, we've actually talked to people who've seen that ghost.
Oh, I've seen that ghost. No, I haven't. So, alright, check this out. I guess my dad is the closest thing we have to a guest today because we didn't have anybody booked, and we received demands from some people that they want to hear us talk instead of other guests and stuff, as interesting as they are. So Paul Eno was one of the first of the modern paranormal investigators. He started investigating reports of ghosts in 1970 when he was studying for the priesthood. He was mentored by some of the greatest experts of the 20th century, including Dr. Louisa Rhine, Father John J. Nicola, and Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're probably the most famous out of the lot. And in the wake of the church's paranormal following, the recent release of the movie The Exorcist in 1973, my father was told to leave the seminary in 1977, 1 or 2 years before he would have been ordained to the priesthood. Well, everything happens for a reason. And he became an award-winning New England newspaper writer and editor, a well-known historian, and later wrote 7 books, 5 of them about the paranormal. The other 2 were just about history and all that good stuff.
They write books about you.
Anyway, continuing the biography, I almost said bibliography, and in his more than 1,200 cases, he has battled poltergeists, dealt with many kinds of ghosts, and communicated with many kinds of apparently non-human entities. You've probably seen him on the History Channel, Discovery Channel, and travel channels, and heard him on many talk shows around the world, and this show right here. And his website is www.newenglandghosts.com.
Well, thank you, Ben. Today we're talking about the seemingly simple question, what are ghosts? Well, it might be a simple question, but it certainly doesn't have a simple answer. And when I started researching ghosts 40 years ago, I came upon the thing using the usual assumptions that almost nobody questions then and now, and even the experts we have on the show frequently don't seem to question these things. For example, ghosts are spirits.
Spirits.
Non-corporeal remnants of people who died. Or, according to my theological training, we're okay here? Right. What happened?
Don't question. Just keep going. Just keep going.
Anyway, the assumptions being that ghosts are spirits, non-corporeal remnants of people who have died, or, according to my theological training, demons or servants of the devil. I believed, as do most of you still, that there was a, quote, spirit world that corresponds to the material world in which we live. I assumed that there had to be religious or scientific principles behind all this that just hadn't been discovered yet. And a lot of people...
all right. Did anybody hear anything before this? Or?
Well, they heard Ben.
So you just sound like you were far away.
Yeah.
Well, it adds to the ambiance of the subject, I suppose. Well, anyway...
Or they could just barely hear you.
Well, you can always buy my books in case you didn't hear what I said. Anyway.
Why that was split, I have no clue.
Story of my life. All right. But from my very first on-site investigation, which was the famous Village of Voices affair in Pomfret, Connecticut in 1971 and 1972, I became both amazed and confused at what I was experiencing. Because I was, as I say, applying these old assumptions that ghosts are spirits of the dead and all this stuff that people don't even question. By 1978, and the famous York, Maine haunter case, all these cases we've talked about on the show, that was a case in which one person was both a living student and a ghost haunting a house at the same time. I realized that none of what I believed was good enough, and there was a lot more to this than the campfire ghost storytellers would have you believe, or would even know themselves. So.
Oh yes. So, what started you off on the theories and methods that you use today?
Okay, well, actually, we have to kind of go back to the very beginning, and I don't mean 1971. There's a common question people receive, and that's, where were you born? And when were you born, And people usually reply quite untruthfully that they were born in such and such a place in this or that year. In fact, you were born out of eternal blackness some 17 billion years ago in an unimaginable blast of light, the primal explosion that hurled a storm of matter and antimatter in directions that hadn't even existed until that time. This is what astronomers call the Big Bang. And there's some controversy now about this Big Bang, but generally I think it's to this first split second of creation that you have to look to begin to understand what ghosts are. Sounds like a strange way to approach it, but I think that's true. And that's because matter and antimatter weren't all that were created at the creation. Space and time also seem to have had their origins in that instant in what physicists call, and this is again starting to get controversial again, they call it a space-time foam. Funny kind of metaphor, but if you picture in your bathtub, say, or in your sink, little bubbles in there when you're doing your dishes or taking a bath or something, what do the bubbles do? They move around each other, they blend at certain points, sometimes they merge, at other times they pop. These are analogous to the worlds that are apparently all around us at all times. This is what the math said. This is the wonderful fringe science, circus science, if you want to call it, of quantum mechanics, where time means absolutely nothing and things take place before the things that cause them, and all this business. So anyway, I think we have to look back at that as our clue as to what ghosts may be. Other worlds, and that is what came to mind when I started doing these really strange cases. Because a lot of people today will, and I want to get to Ben here in a minute because Ben had an interesting experience yesterday on an investigation.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people just again assume that these are okay. We're here, and there's a veil of some kind and some kind of spirit world. But I think it's far deeper than that. You look to this space-time foam, and you have many other sides, as it were, many worlds, and I don't think anyone is dead in any of them. Well, in some of them, I suppose, yeah, but I mean in the sense that people say, well, so-and-so died, so therefore there's his spirit. You can contact, well, I think that's baloney. And looking back to some of my early cases, such as the so-called Village of Voices case in Pomfret, Connecticut, they called it that because people would go in there and hear the voices of the people who'd lived there 200 years before, presumably. We went in. I was a 17 or 18-year-old seminary student, and we had a group of seminary students and also a photographic expert. Went in and several times over the period 1971-72, and we could hear farm implements. We could hear dogs, cows, people talking, mothers calling their children playing along a brook, but we couldn't see anything. We couldn't see it. There was one time. Matter of fact, I opened my book, Turning Home: God, Ghosts, and Human Destiny, which I wrote in 2006, with this story of the ox cart driver coming down a path in this now overgrown area that had been this village, and hearing the hoofbeats and the wooden wheels, hearing the guy yelling "Hyah!" and the crack of a whip, and could not, about 20 feet away or so, couldn't see anything. Now I hope to get back there because I've done this kind of thing before. And I think I know who this guy might be. I think his name is Randall, because the Randalls and the people who gloried in the name of Higginbottom, it's a good old Welsh name, were the first people who lived in this village around the time of the American Revolution. And the thing lasted about 100 years until either the ground gave out or there was a disease that wiped out most of the people and they moved away. But in any case, I think this guy's name might be Randall. The next time I'm over there and I hear this, I'm going to yell, "Hey, Mr. Randall!" And I've actually done things like this. Sometimes they hear you. And what do they think? They think that you are ghosts. Because on their side of this boundary of these worlds, this other side of the membrane of the bubble, if you will, in our space-time foam metaphor, they're living their normal, physical, everyday lives. They may have been dead here for hundreds of years, even thousands, but life's going on just as it would normally over there, and in a million other worlds. So when you look at it, you can't die. It's impossible in the multiverse, in this whole reality, because somewhere or somewhen, it's all you, physical, body, everything. I don't even think your body can die. You go to funerals, I mean, that's the only evidence I've seen of that, but the leaf falls off the tree, well, so what? There are a million others still there, and still the same tree, the same life, the same force, the same energy, the same you. And there you have it. That is what a ghost is, I believe, as far as it goes. So, Mr. Randall, I'm going to talk to you next time I come over there to Pomfret. And this is why I don't believe, and there's a common conception, and the funny thing was that in the early 70s I was an early advocate of this theory, of the residual haunting. Well, this is some kind of recording on the environment of something awful that happened, or someone who went through something terrible at this site and sort of got absorbed into the environment. Well, I suppose that's possible, but I began to doubt that when I went into cases for a number of years and began to change them. For example, there was a house in New Hampshire, and there was a sound that sounded the same all the time, someone walking, and something like a ball dropping or bouncing at the same time. It was a kid, in some other parallel world walking through, just bouncing his ball or basketball or whatever, or somebody in the future, because a lot of these worlds were to us would be the future. And I was able to talk to this kid, and he stopped, and he was absolutely terrified. I couldn't see him, but he thought I was a ghost. Because you find that when you do this, they're often more afraid of you than you are of them. And that sound was never heard in the same way again. So this so-called recording was changed because it wasn't a recording, apparently. It was an actual event going on in a parallel world, and the ducks happened to be lined up, the proper energies, whatever, electromagnetic fields, so that we could hear it. Simple as that. I don't know if you call that simple, but to me it is. All right. Now I want to stop here for a moment and just go to Ben, who has not had a chance to say anything.
Huh?
Yeah, wake up. And we did something interesting yesterday. We have our
we
friend, you. Well, no, we have a friend, Brian West, who is the fellow he runs Boston Paranormal Radio, and I have never met him, but I've been on his show. I believe the two of us have been on his show, And he invited the two of us to come up to an interesting case that people suspected was, well, they would say demons. We would say parasites. Now we're getting into another area of ghosts that are not people living their lives. They are non-human entities who very often will pretend to be human entities in order to eat. They're life forms who feed upon our energy. And this is just, it sounds crazy. This is as real as it gets, folks. I've run into these things for 40 years. They are not pleasant. They are not our friends, but they're part of nature. Life is everywhere. Life is everywhen. Life has been found, microbes have been found in the cores of nuclear reactors. Can you imagine a more hostile environment than that? That's worse than sidereal space. And so, apparently there is life everywhere. It has evolved. In many cases into these parasites. We live, if you want to say, between worlds, and can apparently reach, we've seen this happen on a number of occasions, reach tentacles as almost as if they were octopi into various worlds to feed upon whatever's going on there. So, Ben, we never work with groups. We don't join groups because of the politics, and we don't. We work in entirely different ways, but I thought it was a good experience for you to do this, and take it away. Tell us how it went yesterday.
Okay, after that amazing introduction. So basically, we went up to this house. I was the first to get there.
No, I wasn't there. You're on your own.
Okay, anyway. So, check this out. I went to the wrong place first. I was sitting in the parking lot for half an hour in front of the wrong house, and then I ended up getting to the right house, and the woman there had like she had a lot of animals. She had like 4 dogs, 4 cats, and something like that. And she had her children moved out of the house, like they were living with her sister, I think, because their problem was so bad, like the kids would have like scratches and bruises all over them, and they even got broken bones occasionally from these parasites. And they claim like their father got like picked up by child services because they thought that he was abusing the kids, because the kids walk into school and the teachers see the bruises and stuff, and they're just like, they call child services, and the dad can't be within like 100 feet of the kids, so he can't see his kids.
Restraining order, yeah.
Yeah, because of these things. And so when everybody else got there, like a few seconds after I did, we went in, and they got the story from the woman, and I was just like, I'm just going to go walk around and stuff. And I was drawn to this one room, and there was just so much anger and hate and pain in this house. And me and Brian West and I can't remember the other people's names. I'm so terrible with names. I'm pretty sure it was Christy and Sharon, I think.
I don't know.
I know you don't know, but I know.
No, right.
Kind of. And they were, like, Christy, I think was her name. She was like a shaman or something, and she was like a priestess at a spiritualist church. And then she brought her friend along, and then it was us 4, Brian West included, in that group, and we were talking about what we found. And when Brian West and I went to the backyard, because they're like, hey, go out, check out the backyard. He was drawn to this spot where there was a ton of dead grass. There was dead grass all over the backyard, and then there were spots that were like overgrown and stuff. And apparently in that dead grass, he walked over, and I don't even know what happened, but I ended up over there, and he was like, Ben, check this out, see what you feel from this. And I was like, okay. And like I felt like there was a dead boy buried in this, like 7, 8 years old, something like that, like he was murdered. And so like it just felt horrible, and I looked up at him and he looked at me and he was like, you got the same thing too, didn't you? And I was like, yeah. And then we conversed, like all of us conversed later on, and then we came to the conclusion that this place used to be like a foster home. Like they used to take in like kids off the street, and nobody would care because this was like back in like 1918, so they didn't keep track of these kids. So they could just say, oh, these kids went up and left, but like they were abused and like murdered and stuff, buried in the backyard. Animals were abused, buried in the backyard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was horrible. It was like really sad and like painful. So we developed a plan of attack, and I brought a ton of sage with me. The shaman woman brought a ton of sage with her. So we were going to seal the house and stuff like that and do a little prayer ceremony. So we went upstairs into the room where I initially talked to the entities, and they're like, yeah, we're going to mess with these people. We're going to tell them what they want to hear. We're going to tell them that we're dead people, and they're not going to believe you. And I was like, all right, yeah, whatever, man. And so I burned like a ton of sage, and then I don't remember what happened next. I barely remember anything that happened except everything went all white, and then everything just felt calm, and I heard a ton of children saying thank you. And it was probably the most beautiful experience of my life. Mm-hmm. And I will hold myself true to that, Scout's honor.
That's beautiful.
And so they're going to do a follow-up soon, I think within the next few weeks, to see how everything's going. But Brian West went back in, he's like, yeah, it feels much better up here now. It doesn't feel like as angry and death and stuff like that.
Well, needless to say, I'm proud of my son, but I think that follow-up is the key word. Very often we just, groups go in and they'll even if they do it right, they don't follow up. There are cases we worked on for years. I'm thinking particularly of the one in Burrillville here in Rhode Island, which we've worked on for it's actually over 10 years. And the shamanic approach does seem to have solved that. And I don't want to go into details. We're hoping to have him on the show too, but he's a great mentor to Ben and a great friend of ours.
He's a wicked good guy.
So, is this how this group usually? We're talking about, I guess it's Northeast Paranormal?
Something like that, yeah. Okay. I don't remember the name of the group, but
we very often diss groups like that in this show, and that's not always fair.
They're a nice group.
Oh yeah, no, because very often we'll go out and meet them, or they'll ask us to come and talk to them, or they'll, and we have lots of them. Obviously, we'll listen to this show, and I've learned to respect many of the people who are out there doing what they do well. And as far as it goes, maybe they don't have the same approach that we do, but maybe we're wrong. We often refer to feral ghost hunters roaming in packs because there are plenty of jerks out there doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But again, I was really happy to have you go out there. You sure did some good, and I'm real proud of that. That's great.
Thanks.
You stand on some real strong legs there, and hopefully we'll start doing our TV show, and they'll stand you in good stead.
Thank you, Father.
Okay. Well, so there are other cases too that have illustrated how you can't. All I can think of is Bill Murray at the end of his TV show in Ghostbusters 2 says that's the problem with his case. Aliens, you just can't trust them. So we're very, very wary of anything we learn from or are told by any of these entities. And when we come back, I'll tell you about one or two cases that that really convinced me the hard way that was the case. And we will hopefully get a call from our friend Steve Fermani and any of you who would like to talk to us about this subject. Again, 766-1240 locally, 401-766-1240, and also 800-449-1240 from anywhere in the country. And you are listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, our Monday Drive Time edition on WOON 1240 AM and ONWorldwide.com in New England's beautiful Blackstone Valley. Now, I'd like to take just a moment to tell you about our friends over at American Beauty Sign Works. Oscar Hancock and his sons working on signs over there of all kinds, vehicle wrapping, and they do all our signage for us when Ben and I go on the road. They did a beautiful banner for us and stuff when we went, and a beautiful microphone flag when we went up to the Exeter UFO Festival 2 weeks ago. And that it was just people were just drawn to us. I think the signage had something to do with this. A lot of listeners came up and said hello. Really appreciated that. And other people who didn't know who we were who wanted to know. And they'll do signage of all kinds, vehicle wraps, banners. In fact, he wanted to wrap Ben's car.
No.
It's a very unusual looking car. Truck lettering, A-frames, magnets, business cards, envelopes, you name it. Lighted signs, channel signs. They handle a lot of the commercial signage around this area in northern Rhode Island, and it's beautiful stuff. And the vehicle wrapping, too, was a big thing. You see, all these beautiful photos of lovely farm scenes on dairy trucks and things like that. Chances are maybe Oscar did that. That's right. So check out American Beauty Sign Works, absignworks.com, and it's 345 Providence Street in Woonsocket, 401-767-2922. Also in Warwick, Rhode Island, 401-372-2790. Check them out. Also, people have asked where they can get my books. Question I appreciate. I've written a few.
Where can we get your books?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. That's a good question.
You're welcome.
You can get them online, of course, at Amazon.com, or any bookstore can order them. And the name is Eno, E-N-O. For some reason, people put an S on that, but it's just one spelled backwards, actually.
Yeah.
So, and you can also go to newriverpress.com, and also our show website, behindtheparanormal.com. There's you can get the books there, little buttons you can click and all this business. So if you get them from there, I will sign them, because the orders go across my desk when they come in. So that way I can know to sign them. And if you want to have a particular name, there's an instruction area in the order form, and you can do that. So check it out, behindtheparanormal.com.
Yeah.
And so let's get back to our subject here. Ghosts who are not honest. Okay. There have been a number of cases that I've been involved with, and also and every time Ben walks into a case too, and when we work together, it seems as though he very easily communicates with these entities. And as a matter of fact, yesterday they knew who you were, didn't they?
Yep.
Yeah, that's something that can be a shock when you're not used to it, but I'm used to it.
I'm used to it too.
Yeah.
So don't worry about
exactly. And they very often have a tendency to pretend to be Uncle Charles, who died 2 years before, and you see him skipping down the hallway before breakfast, that sort of thing. And if you are able to get around their tactics, again, you find that they are pushing buttons in order to eat. Parasites will, known in folklore as demons or whatever you want to call them, will push buttons by getting people upset. In many cases, such as the Burrillville case, one of the tactics was to pretend to actually create audio sounds and pretend to be other members of the family and say insulting things. The kids would hear people calling their own names and saying insulting things in the voices of other members of the family. This is very common, and I hear this all the time. This is just one of the tactics to get people upset. Now we have a call. Joe is on the line. Joe, welcome to Behind the Paranormal.
Hello there. How you doing?
There we go.
Am I on?
And we got. Oh, okay. We can't hear him. We got a button problem here. Can the audience hear him? Okay. Can I have the earphones, please? All right. Thank you.
No.
Okay, Joe.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. A couple of audio glitches here.
Yeah, I just got out of work and I tuned the radio on and I heard what you're talking about, and I said, "Jesus, a new show." I can attest there are spirits, without a doubt. We lived, me and my wife, we lived across the street from the Precious Blood Cemetery.
Okay. That's in Woonsocket, Rhode Island.
Right at the bottom of Diamond Hill Road. Yes.
Yeah.
And we lived there about 5.5 years, and we had strange things. Now, it was in the whole house, too.
Mm-hmm.
Not just our apartment. And radio going on by itself at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is supposed to be the devil's hour. I don't know.
Well, a lot of things happen around that time. Yeah.
And one day I was laying down with my headphones, listening to some music, and all of a sudden, full blast. I took it off. What the heck is it? I go to my receiver, and it's all the way up. The volume's all the way up. And I'm putting it down, and it's going up. I'm putting it down, it's going up. I said, what? I had to shut it off. Thank God I had my headphones and not the speakers on.
No, yeah.
I mean, I said, what? And this and that. I come home, and I have a pug, a female pug, Chloe. And she always used to come to the door. She wants a treat, And I come home, and Chloe, and I look for her, and she'd be hiding on the side, in the back of the couch, and I called her, I said, what are you doing over there? Come on and see Dad, and she'd be slowly walking toward me, looking around both sides, and definitely scared, I had a friend who had a psychic friend, and I said, hey, tell him to come to my house, I wanted to, because there's strange things going on. And so she came over, and she just, we met her outside, and I said, hey, here you go. She says, let me open the door. And she just held the handle of the doorknob, and she said, whoa, something's here. I said, well, I know that. I know something's there. And she said, there is a spirit in your apartment, I mean, without a doubt. You know, and she just, bad vibes. It was like a restless spirit, mean, unhappy. I said, good, well, you know, me and my wife were looking at her, you know, and I said, well, check out, you know, walk around, and I said, she says, what room is that? That's our bedroom. She walked in, and she says, he's here. I said, he's here? He's here in your bedroom. I said, oh, great, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Well, yeah,
so,
very common.
A lot of strange things happen.
Yeah.
But the most unusual thing, and you know, every morning I used to go outside, have a cigarette with my cup of coffee, you know, and but there was one day, it was a Saturday afternoon, my wife took a basket of laundry. She's going to do some laundry downstairs in the cellar. We had a washer and dryer, coin operated for the tenants. And she opened the door, she had the basket, and she didn't close the door all the way. It was open about maybe 6 inches, you know. I said, well, she's coming right back up. I'm laying down looking at TV, okay? And there was a click, and my dog started barking. I looked at my dog, and she's looking at the door, and I looked at the door. I said, are you kidding me? It was the deadbolt turned and sticking out. Now, you got to turn a deadbolt. It doesn't turn by itself. And that's what it was. I said, are you kidding me? And so I guess it's a strong spirit to do something like that. And
very true, yeah.
And there was one other thing that happened. For the folks in Woonsocket, it's 173 Diamond Hill Road. It's past the Rasmus Street light. It's a white house with a red door.
Okay, well, we generally don't like to give addresses because
it's okay.
People give them.
And when it was first moved, I said, "What's
this is your house?"
Excuse me.
This is your house?
No, it was a tenant's house. It was a 5 people tenant house.
Okay, well, go ahead.
Anyways, this red door is very, very heavy. You know, it's like a spring-loaded type thing. You open it and it's very heavy. You can feel the weight of the door. And as you walk in, it just closes. Okay. There was a problem in the cellar with the boiler, and me and a neighbor upstairs, we went downstairs to check it out. And as we did that, we came back toward the front of the house, and to our amazement, the red door was swaying back and forth like it was plywood. And I said, do you see this? He says, yeah. I said, it's impossible, which it is impossible. Mm-hmm. Because it's so heavy. Unless you push the door from, going outside, it would open. But to go like back and forth, it's impossible. And as we walked toward the door, it just closed.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Have you found that? Have you had experiences like this all your life, or you feel it's just the places you've lived?
Oh, it's that apartment. That apartment.
I see. Okay. Well, Joe, thank you for calling in. The stories are very interesting, and I do have a couple of thoughts on this. Okay.
And one more thing.
Yeah.
There was some people that go to the cemetery at night, late at night, past 12 o'clock, and they're into that spirit thing, And I had gone over, and I talked to the gentleman. He's with his wife. And we were walking, and his wife was taking photographs in back of us. And then she showed, I said, these round balls, like little round balls. I said...
Yeah, the orbs, as they call it. Yeah.
What are those?
Well... Half the time they're dust or insects caught in the flash of the lights. Yeah,
well,
but they are. Some of them are real. I've seen them with the naked eye. I've had them follow me. I've had them change colors.
They were circular and they were small, medium, large. Mm-hmm. And I could see. I said, "What are those things?"
No, I hear you.
You know?
Yeah.
But very strange, though, huh?
Very much so. Yeah, as I say,
they wrote books about Precious Blood Cemetery. I guess it's the most haunted cemetery in the state of Rhode Island.
I had a very interesting experience myself at Precious Blood Cemetery, photographically speaking, and this goes back some years. I was putting together a slideshow for one of my lectures, and I happened to, and I used slide film, and I was at the grave of Marie Rose Farron.
Right.
Whom I'm sure you know,
Yes.
And around here in Woonsocket, now this is an international show, so I don't expect everybody to know who she was, but just for, local folks know that she was a reputedly very holy young woman who had the stigmata of Christ, the wounds of Christ, reportedly on her body, and became quite a sensation in this area in the 1920s and 30s. And she's buried in this Precious Blood Cemetery, lovely flat stone, and there are always flowers, and her biography is on the stone. So I stopped to take a few pictures of this, and in a series of 5 photographs, the first one was just black. The second one was a little bit lighter. The third one looked like a light was coming from her stone. And I'm a military-trained photographer, and I've been a journalist for 30 years. I kind of look very seriously at how photography is, and I know when there's something weird or not. And the fourth photograph, the light was brighter. And the fifth photograph, it was almost on, but you can see a light coming from her stone, illuminating, as it were, the stones around her. And you could see, and you can compare it with the cloud formations in those photos with the normal photographs, and it's the same cloud, so you can see it's taken at the same time.
Right.
So this is a very interesting area in Woonsocket.
Right.
It's the whole Blackstone Valley is interesting, but there seems to be a lot of, and it's interesting that you pointed out, Joe, the electrical phenomena that accompanied your experience. We often see that because ghosts, quote unquote, are essentially electrical. The whole phenomena, electromagnetic fields and this business. And as I say, personally, I don't believe we're dealing with spirits, because otherwise, why are they wearing clothes? Why do you hear farm implements in the case of that Village of Voices thing I was talking about? I think we're dealing with people in parallel worlds, which is much more exciting, in my opinion. But in any case, maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong.
Yeah.
But thank you. We got another caller here, and
about that film. Now you would tell someone it's probably the defective film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
Joe,
okay,
Joe, we're kind of running out of time.
Thank you, my friend.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Great to call in again. It was great to talk to you. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, and we have Steve from New Hampshire. I guess we're going to switch gears here a little bit. Steve, we got Steve? Okay, I guess not. Oh, we do have Steve. How you doing, Steve?
You do. Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Good. Steve Fermani. Steve Fermani is the director of New England MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. And what?
No, I laugh if it wasn't Steve Fermani. It was some other guy named Steve who happened to be at the UFO festival that day.
Well, there are coincidences. I know his very genial and friendly laugh. So that's Steve. So
I hear Ben there too.
Exactly.
How you doing, Ben?
Good, you? I was in mid-yawn, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, Ben keeps our feet on the ground. So, Steve, we've been saying on the air what a wonderful time we had at the UFO Festival, how well organized it was, how great it was to meet many of our guests who were speakers there, including yourself, certainly, Stan Friedman and Phil Imbrogno, and of course, Peter Robbins as well. So, how did the festival go? Was it as successful as it looked?
It was fantastic. Even with the threat of a hurricane, we did far beyond what our wildest dreams. It could have been even better without the threat of a hurricane, because that kept a lot of people from
Oh, I know it. Yeah. We had Hurricane Earl sort of creeping up the coast the day before the event, which took place on September 4th, Saturday, September 4th, and we were a little concerned about whether we would be able to go or not. But I had a little rain, and Stan Friedman, driving down from New Brunswick, said he didn't run into any bad weather either. So it all worked out very well.
Oh, yeah. I joked with Peter Robbins on Friday afternoon. I said, well, we're the only UFO festival that comes complete with its own hurricane.
Mm-hmm. That's it. And, of course, the reason it was held in Exeter was largely because that was where the first major, at least covered by the press, event in the world of abductions occurred, Barney and Betty Hill in 1961. And can you tell us if that area, I hear it's always been active, UFO-wise?
It has been active UFO-wise, and I think a part of it has to do with there is a connection between Pease Air Force Base and Roswell, New Mexico.
Okay, all right. I never heard that.
There was a squadron. I forgot the exact squadron name and number, but they used to transport different artifacts and things back and forth, from the East Coast to the out to New Mexico, and it's the same squadron that was involved in the Roswell case.
I never realized that.
Yeah, there is a connection between the two.
Okay. Could you tell us just briefly about the Betty and Barney Hill case?
Well, Betty and Barney were traveling. They had gone on vacation up to Canada, and they were on their way back. They came to a spot in New Hampshire called Indian Head, and they noticed a bright light in the sky. Soon, the light turned into a disc-shaped craft, and they could actually see on the front of the craft a series of windows where they thought they could see beings inside the windows. They moved along down the road, and the next thing they knew, they were on this, they had turned off somewhere to the secluded road, and these beings were standing around them. They allegedly took them aboard the craft and did physical examinations, amongst a number of things. And the next thing they knew, they were back in their vehicle. They arrived home, but it was like a couple hours later than they were supposed to arrive home. And they had no actual memories of what had happened to them at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much the story in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, I remember that. Yeah. Well, that's quite a thing, and I think one of the goals of the festival is to draw attention to that and to make Exeter really kind of the Eastern Roswell, huh?
Well, that and the Norman Musciarello case, which happened back in the 1960s. Norman was a 19-year-old. He was hitchhiking. He was just ready to go into the Navy. He was going to be going to Vietnam during the Vietnam era, and he was hitchhiking, and he was buzzed by a UFO. But it actually came down so close that he dove onto the road.
Really?
To avoid the thing hitting him. He finally got into town, went to the police station, and one of the police officers went out to the area with him and witnessed the same craft. There were also two other police officers in separate locations that also observed the craft in the sky that night.
Mm-hmm.
There was one witness, but 3 police officers witnessed the same thing along with him. And that is basically what the incident at Exeter is about. It was a book written by a writer named John Fuller.
Mm-hmm.
Raymond Fowler from MUFON was was probably the head investigator on that case.
Okay, and we often find in our work that various areas of the paranormal overlap, and of course we've started ghost cases and ended up with grays and UFOs and all this stuff, or sometimes both. So I think the processes are the same, and that's why we cover it all on this show. Steve, when is the next festival?
Well, the next festival will be, we're hoping next year again.
Yeah.
I think we're going to take a couple months off, and
I don't blame you.
Start up after the first of the year and see if we can get things organized for next year.
Very good. Well, you did a terrific job, and thanks for calling in. We'll be talking to you very soon.
Well, thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to have you up there.
Oh, well, thank you for the warm welcome.
Well,
yes,
we'll
thank
hope
you.
to have you up there again next year.
Oh, well, we'll be there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take
All
care.
right. Steve Fermani, everybody, from New England MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, one of the organizers, certainly, of the great UFO Festival in Exeter, New Hampshire, September 4th. Check it out next year. Now, we have a very interesting email here from Caleb Tovar in Monterrey, Mexico, one of our listeners, and he's writing about something with some energy at work. I like to compliment him on his English, too. It's pretty good. Ben, it's a long one. Why don't we take the first section there?
Okay.
All right.
Great. So, Mr. and Mr. Eno. Oh, all right.
That's us.
Yeah, that is us. Hello, I want to send you my congratulations for your magnificent radio show.
I like that adjective.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just knew about I knew about you a couple of weeks ago, and now I'm totally into the Enos. All right.
That could be dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. Anyway, I have a question for you. I work on an art gallery at Monterrey, Mexico. It's located on a quite old house, about 120 years old, in downtown, and we have some situations with some quite heavy energy on one of the exhibit rooms. No big deal. Nothing big has happened. So, except that the ambiance or the vibe of that room gets heavy and dense. I can say that it's not a big deal because it's harmless, but prevents people from getting in or staying in the room. And as a art gallery, it reflects on money. It takes a long time to sell something exhibited in that room. That's just an example, because people don't want to stay there. The rest of the place is a peaceful place with a lovely garden and fountains. So we can assume that whatever it is attached to that room only. My question is, do you know a way to clean the place, or maybe an idea or a suggestion?
Okay, well, to move toward an answer to that, I think we have to look at what is actually happening. And, of course, without actually being there, it's difficult to say. However, what you say, Caleb, what you describe is a very familiar scenario to us. Very often, we have found that it's not necessarily just one room. Sometimes there can be a very strong electromagnetic field coming up from the ground. And so what? Well, electromagnetic fields, and remember I was telling Joe, who called the ghosts are essentially electrical. And what I mean is that the boundaries between worlds are essentially electrical, and we believe we have actual photographs of these boundaries. People often see the very bright light. Often we have some photographs with this very bright light, and on one side there seems to be one room, and on another side seems to be another, taken with an ordinary camera, ordinary film, or digital. And there's no reason why this should have happened except that we caught the boundaries intersecting, which they sometimes do, and which I think is the ultimate cause of all things paranormal. So what's probably happening here, Caleb, is that there may be a very, very negative thing happening in some parallel world that's relatively nearby in a broad sense of the term, and you end up with feelings of dread or feelings of heaviness. You often have this when you visit a place. If you are in the position of buying a new home and you walk into a house and you feel this way, turn around and walk right out the door. There are reasons why we feel this way. These are parts of our instincts, our survival instincts, and they not only include being afraid of the saber-toothed cat or having funny feelings that some sort of bear is going to jump on you from the tree, but it's also feeling that something is wrong with a particular place. And very often what's wrong is that you've got worlds colliding and intersecting where bad things are happening. And there are areas where the energies are right so that this does not happen. So I think that what we're dealing with in this gallery is a very common problem where something very negative is happening. Now, what to do about it? It is possible at times to close the door, so to speak, to separate the worlds, the bubbles, as we were talking about earlier, and to make it a healthier place. That is often done by, I call it, what do we call it, Ben? The Peter Pan theory, right?
Oh, yeah.
Think happy thoughts, laughter, faith, good feeling, and especially love. And it sounds hokey and corny, but it's not. This is, as I say, this is as real as it gets. We very often lightened the heavy atmosphere in such places simply by bringing in good feeling, positive people. Probably a practical answer might be to put in that exhibit area positive works of art. things that really uplift the spirit, uplift the soul. I would not be averse to having the place blessed by a priest, or sage burned in the Native American manner. Ben used that case yesterday that we were talking about. And this sort of thing. Anything positive that can bring in positive energy might help that whole scene. And I'll give you an example quickly because we're coming down to the end of our hour. But there was a case in Cumberland, Rhode Island, where it was before Ben was working with me, but we went into
It's probably 'cause before I was alive.
You were little. And we went into a house that was having a lot of negative stuff had happened there. And there's a particular area they called the secret cellar. Now, this book is, I should say this case is recounted in my book, Footsteps in the Attic. And we went in there and you'd feel this heaviness. You'd feel this depression, sadness. And what we did was to have the whole family get together. And they really did it well. And they just broadcast, if you will, or sent positive energy, compassion, love, faith, good humor toward this area and toward this person who somewhere in space-time was having an awful time, and we were picking it up there in that room. And it worked. I got a call several weeks later from the young girl in the house that this had been she'd had a dream that the young man, whose name apparently was Kevin, had been rocking her in a hammock out in the yard and had the most beautiful smile on his face. And we apparently had done a beautiful thing, reached across the boundaries of worlds and helped a fellow human being. He wasn't dead, it wasn't a spirit, just a guy in trouble. And whether he knew it or not, friends from another world were helping him. And I think that is a mind-wrenching concept, something that if we grasp it, gives us tremendous power to help others. And this is what we do, I guess, when we ask deceased relatives to help us. We do that all the time because they're not deceased. Nobody's dead. So in any case, I think this is an example of what you can do. Make it positive. Turn it around. Get people to do it together because then it's really, really powerful. So that's what I would say. All right, so we're coming down to the end of our hour here. And I guess we want to do our announcement here, Ben?
Great. So don't forget about the annual Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, next Saturday and Sunday, September 18th and 19th. There are Mothman tours, great food, interesting vendors, and exhibits. And the Mothman Museum alone is worth the trip. We've been there ourselves.
Yeah, check out www.mothmanlives.com for details.
Great.
We also want to check out our website. Again, our show website, BehindTheParanormal.com. And also, I meant to say, go on to the Museum of Work and Culture gift shop in Woonsocket here. And my books are available there, too. All right. So many thanks to our producer. And that's Nicole today. And we'll see you right here next Monday, September 20th, at WOON, 1240 a.m. and onworldwide.com at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. We'll have our good friend, author, and investigator, Tom D'Agostino, one of our local ghost experts here. A good friend of ours. He's going to be talking about his latest investigations and do some playing of some EVP, some electronic voice phenomena, which we have our, skepticism about. But hey, it's good stuff. It could be real. And on our regular Sunday show on September 19th, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific, on CBS Radio in Detroit, Boston, and Seattle, and online at www.newskyradio.com and www.parax.com. We're on all places. The guy told us he heard us on his iPhone. Anyway, Ben and I will continue our discussion on the nature of ghosts that we started this evening. A lot more to talk about on that.
All right, so check out our show website, again, www.behindtheparanormal.com, for local radio schedules and CBS stations that carry us. And you can always get free podcasts on our show website, again, www.behindtheparanormal.com.
Okay, we'll leave you with a quick quote tonight. That actually I made and found its way into the literature. I don't believe the ghosts are spirits of the dead because I don't believe in death. In the multiverse, once you're possible, you exist. Once you exist forever, one way or another.
Oh, see you next time.
Return to this radio frequency 167 hours from now for another edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.